40 of the craziest alien conspiracy theories. Theory number 1, the Black Knight satellite. The Black Knight satellite is said to be a mysterious object that has been orbiting Earth for thousands of years, possibly even as long as 13,000 years. Now, the idea is that it isn't, space junk or a normal satellite, but an ancient alien probe that has been quietly watching us. Now, it's called the Black Knight because of its dark appearance and the feeling that it's like a silent guard floating above the planet. Now, the story ties together several strange events across history. So back in 1899, Nikola Tesla reported picking up unusual radio signals that didn't match anything known at the time. In the 1920s, ham radio operators picked up echoes of their own signals being bounced back after long delays, almost as if something in space was capturing and replaying them. In 1954, newspapers reported that 2 unexplained objects were orbiting Earth, which was years before any country had the technology to launch satellites. In 1960, the US Navy tracked a dark object moving in a polar orbit, which was unusual because it wasn't linked to any known spacecraft. Later, in 1963, astronaut Gordon Cooper supposedly reported seeing a glowing object during a mission. The theory really picked up again in 1998 when NASA released photos from the STS-88 mission. Now, the images showed a jagged black object floating above Earth that didn't look like any regular satellite. Some call it space debris, but others point to it as proof of the Black Knight. So the core idea of this theory is pretty simple. I mean, Earth might already have an alien machine parked in orbit, silently monitoring our progress and waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Theory number 2, the Council of 5 Races. Now, the Council of 5 Races is described as a sort of galactic United Nations made up of 5 powerful alien species that secretly oversee Earth and other developing civilizations. The idea is that these races formed an alliance a very long time ago to maintain peace and balance across the galaxy. Now, each race is said to have its own strengths. I mean, some are highly advanced in technology, some are more spiritual and focused on energy and consciousness, and others act as peacekeepers who try to prevent conflict between species. Now, the theory says that Earth is considered a protected planet because humanity is still young and not ready to interact openly with other civilizations. The Council's role is to watch us closely, make sure we don't destroy ourselves, and then step in only if something threatens the bigger cosmic balance. They are said to operate in the background, influencing governments, guiding certain individuals, and controlling the limits of contact with alien life. Now, each race is supposed to represent a different aspect of guidance, like science, wisdom, or protection, and the Council doesn't, rule over humanity directly, but it acts more like a guardian who basically just sets boundaries. For example, they might allow abductions or, sightings only to a certain point, but stop anything that would cause mass panic or change human culture too quickly. Theory number 3, the Shag Harbour Crash. The Shag Harbour Crash is one of the most famous UFO incidents in Canada, and the theory around it claims that a spacecraft actually went down off the coast of Nova Scotia in 1967. Now, late one night, dozens of people reported seeing a glowing object streak across the sky before crashing into the water near the small fishing village of Shag Harbour. Witnesses described it as a large, bright object that made no sound and then seemed to float on the surface before sinking. The Canadian authorities treated it like a real crash. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police were called in, rescue teams rushed to the site, and the Coast Guard sent divers to search the water. Everyone thought it might have been a plane, but no aircraft were missing. The divers reportedly found strange foam on the surface and lights underwater, but no wreckage was ever officially recovered. The theory says that the object wasn't a plane at all, but an alien craft that either crashed or had some kind of malfunction. Some reports claim that divers later discovered not 1, but 2 UFOs under the water. The story goes that the second craft came to help the first one, and then both stayed submerged while naval ships monitored the area. After a few days, the object supposedly moved underwater down the coast before disappearing into the ocean depths. Theory number 4, the Arcturian Guardians. The Arcturian Guardians theory describes a group of highly advanced beings from the star system Arcturus, about 36 light years away from Earth. They're often described as one of the oldest and most evolved civilizations in the galaxy, and that's both technologically and spiritually. The idea is that their main role is to act as protectors, guiding younger civilizations like ours so we don't self-destruct or fall under the influence of hostile forces. The theory says the Arcturians are not interested in controlling humanity, but in actually helping us grow. They're often described as beings of light or energy, meaning they might not even have physical bodies like ours anymore. Instead, they use their advanced understanding of energy, consciousness, and technology to move across dimensions and interact with humans in subtle ways. Some stories say they send telepathic messages, they appear in dreams, or they work through certain individuals who are more tuned in to higher states of awareness. They're also said to maintain powerful ships that orbit Earth, acting as a kind of protective barrier against darker alien races that might want to exploit us. In this way, the Arcturians are seen as guardians who keep the balance in check. Their focus is not just on survival, but on pushing humanity toward higher levels of understanding. Things like compassion, unity, and awareness of the universe as a connected whole. Theory number 5, the Solway 5th Spaceman. The Solway 5th Spaceman theory comes from a strange photo taken in 1964 in Cumbria, England. A man named Jim Templeton took his young daughter out for the day and snapped some pictures of her sitting in a field. Now, when the photos were developed, one of them showed what looked like a figure standing right behind his daughter. The figure appeared to be tall, dressed in a white suit, and wearing something that looked like a helmet. Jim insisted that nobody else was there that day, and he didn't see anyone in the background when he took the picture. The theory says this wasn't a normal person who just wandered into the shot or photobombed it, but instead some kind of alien being or even a time traveler. The figure looked a lot like an astronaut, even though space travel was brand new in the 1960s, and nobody in the area would have been dressed like that. And to make things stranger, Jim later said that men who claimed to be government officials visited him, asked questions about the photo, and then mysteriously disappeared without leaving names or contact details. Some versions of the theory connect the figure to UFO activity reported in the same region at the time. There were also claims that missile tests in Australia had to be stopped because figures similar to the Spaceman were seen there as well. Theory number 6, Project Serpo. Project Serpo is the name given to a secret exchange program said to have taken place between the United States government and an alien civilization from the Zeta Reticuli star system. Now, according to the story, after the Roswell crash in 1947, communication was supposedly established with the beings from the crashed craft. Now, over time, an agreement was made. In return for technology and knowledge, a group of humans would be allowed to travel to the aliens' home planet. In 1965, 12 carefully selected Americans, 10 men and 2 women, were said to have boarded an alien spacecraft and left Earth for Serpo. The trip supposedly took around 9 months, and once they arrived, the team supposedly lived there for about 13 years, studying the alien culture, environment, and their technology. Serpo was described as smaller than Earth with 2 suns, which meant constant daylight and no real night. The aliens, often called Ebens, were described as highly intelligent but also peaceful and cooperative, living in a structured society with advanced technology. Out of the 12 who left, only 8 supposedly returned. 2 died on Serpo due to accidents, and 2 others chose to stay behind. The returning crew was said to have brought back stories, data, and even artifacts, though all of it was locked away under top security. Theory number 7, the Vatican's alien files. The Vatican's alien files theory suggests that the Catholic Church has long been aware of the existence of extraterrestrial life and keeps hidden records, artifacts, and even direct evidence locked away in its archives. The idea is that deep inside the Vatican Library, which if you don't know what the Vatican Library is, it's basically just an enormous collection of restricted documents, but this theory says that there are secret files that confirm alien contact with humanity throughout history, locked away in the Vatican Library. Now, the theory ties into the fact that the Vatican has one of the largest historical archives in the world, much of it that is closed to the public. Now, people point out that the church has always collected not just religious texts, but also scientific studies, strange artifacts, and unusual reports from missionaries around the globe. According to this theory, some of those reports describe encounters with beings not from Earth. Now, another part of the story focuses on the Vatican's deep involvement in astronomy. The Vatican Observatory is one of the oldest in the world, and the church has invested heavily in space research. Some claim this isn't just about, science or faith, but about keeping watch for signs of alien life the Vatican already knows exists. The theory also says the Vatican withholds this information because open disclosure could shake the foundation of religion, raising questions about God, creation, and humanity's place in the universe. Instead, the church supposedly prepares the public slowly, dropping hints through statements by priests and even popes who have suggested that aliens could be real and still part of God's plan. Theory number 8, the moon as a spaceship. The moon as a spaceship theory suggests that the moon is not a natural object at all, but a massive artificial structure placed in orbit around Earth by an advanced civilization. The idea is that, what we see as a rocky surface is more like a shell covering up a hollow interior, with machinery or even living space inside. Now, instead of being just another planetary satellite, the moon would be a gigantic craft designed to monitor or even control Earth. Now, one reason this theory exists is because of unusual features on the moon. For example, its size and distance from Earth create perfect solar eclipses, which is seen as too precise to be coincidence. The moon's orbit is also unusually stable, and some scientists in the past have noted how large it is compared to the planet it orbits, something that, doesn't match with most natural moons in the solar system. During the Apollo missions, astronauts reported strange echoes when equipment was dropped on the surface, describing the moon as if it rang like a bell, which some people took as a hint that it might be hollow. The theory also suggests that the moon could have been placed there as a kind of base, observation post, or even as a way to influence Earth's development. Ancient myths and texts from different cultures often describe the time before the moon, which is sometimes used as, evidence that it wasn't always there. Theory number 9, the Mars Face Builders. The Mars Face Builders theory comes from a famous image taken by NASA's Viking 1 orbiter in 1976. The photo showed what looked like a giant human face carved into the surface of Mars in a region called Cydonia. The face was miles wide with what appeared to be eyes, a nose, and a mouth. The theory says that this isn't a natural rock formation at all, but a monument built by an ancient civilization that once lived on Mars. According to the theory, the face on Mars was created either as a way to signal other intelligent life or as a remnant of a long-lost Martian culture. Supporters often point out that the face sits near other unusual landforms that look like pyramids or geometric shapes, suggesting an entire complex of alien ruins. Some have argued that the layout of these structures matches star patterns, much like how, ancient monuments on Earth, such as the pyramids of Giza, line up with constellations. Later missions like Mars Global Surveyor and Mars Renaissance Orbiter took sharper images of the site that showed it looking more like a natural mesa. But still, the theory claims that the earlier photos revealed enough detail to prove intentional design, and the later missions might have been used to downplay its importance. Theory number 10, the Zeta Reticuli Treaty. The Zeta Reticuli Treaty theory is about a secret agreement said to have been made between the United States government and a group of extraterrestrials from the Zeta Reticuli star system, often linked to the beings known as Greys. Now, I know we kind of already covered this a little bit in, 2 previous theories, but we'll go a little bit more in depth about it. So according to this story, this deal happened in the early 1950s during President Eisenhower's time in office. Now, the idea is that the aliens offered advanced technology in exchange for permission to quietly study and experiment on humans. Now, the theory says that the US government agreed to this deal because it promised a huge leap in science and military power. In return, the Greys were allowed to abduct a limited number of humans each year, as long as they returned them unharmed and kept their presence hidden. Alien bases, both underground and possibly underwater, are said to have been set up with the government's knowledge as part of this treaty. Over time, the story claims the Greys pushed the limits of the agreement, taking more people than originally allowed and not always following the rules. Reports of cattle mutilations, strange implants, and abduction stories are often connected to this supposed treaty gone wrong. The US government, according to this theory, couldn't stop it without risking open conflict with a far more advanced species. Theory number 11, the Baltic Sea Anomaly. The Baltic Sea Anomaly theory comes from a discovery made in 2000 2011 by a team of Swedish treasure hunters called Ocean X. Now, while scanning this seafloor with sonar, they found a massive object sitting about 300 feet down in the Baltic Sea. The shape of the object was strange. It looked round, almost like a giant disc, and measured nearly 200 feet across. The sonar images showed sharp edges, right angles, and even what looked like a staircase or ramps leading up to it. Now, the theory says that the object isn't a natural rock formation, but something artificial. Some describe it as a crashed UFO that has been lying on the seafloor for thousands of years. Others think it could be an ancient structure, maybe even a base built by aliens that once operated in Earth's oceans. Divers who went down to investigate claimed that electronic equipment stopped working near the object, like compasses and cameras shutting off, which added to the whole entire mystery. There were also reports that the structure looked as if it had skid marks behind it, as though it had, crash landed and slid across the seabed before stopping. The unusual shape combined with these details gave rise to the idea that it could be an alien craft. Theory number 12, the Yonaguni Monument. The Yonaguni Monument theory comes from a strange underwater structure discovered off the coast of Yonaguni, a small island in Japan in the mid-1980s. Divers exploring the seabed found what looked like a massive stone complex about 80 feet below the surface. The structure has huge flat platforms, sharp edges, straight walls, and steps that look like they were carved into terraces. It's so large that even some parts resemble pyramids or even an ancient city frozen in time. Now, the theory says that this monument isn't a natural rock formation, but the remains of an ancient civilization that existed thousands of years ago, possibly even older than known history. Some suggest that it may have been built when the sea levels were lower, during the last ice age, which could have placed it at least, 10,000 years old. Now, if true, that would make it older than the pyramids in Egypt and possibly evidence of a lost advanced culture. Another layer to the theory ties in aliens. Now, the precision of the cuts, the sheer size of the monument, and the mystery of who could have built it have led to the idea that extraterrestrial beings may have been involved, either by directly constructing it or by guiding humans who lived there at the time. Theory number 13, hyperdimensional UFOs. Hyperdimensional UFOs are said to come from outside our normal three-dimensional world. Now, instead of traveling across space the slow and the hard way, they basically enter our space from a higher dimension, kind of like slipping through a side door in reality. That's why they seem to appear and vanish instantly, how they can make impossible turns or go from hovering to extreme speed without noise or heat. They aren't breaking physics, they're stepping around it. In this view, a craft isn't a metal ship in the usual sense. It's a controlled distortion of space, time, and energy. When it phases into our world, we see, whatever part intersects with our senses. That could be glowing orbs, triangles, discs, even shapes that morph. Radar might catch them, then lose them, and that's because they're only, partly here. Now, the electromagnetic side effects like dead car batteries, stopped watches, scrambled cameras are explained as fringe energy bleeding into our dimension. Missing time and altered perception during close encounters fit the same idea. Time doesn't flow the same when a higher dimensional field brushes against us, so minutes can stretch or disappear. Some reports of telepathy or intense fear or euphoria get framed as consciousness reacting to a reality shift. This also ties into portals and thin places. Basically, if certain locations or moments can make it easier for dimensions to overlap, think of things like geomagnetic hotspots or strong electrical storms, more sightings will cluster there. Under this model, UFOs aren't mainly visitors from another star, they're visitors from another layer of reality that occasionally intersects with ours. Theory number 14, the Phoenix Lights message. Now, the Phoenix Lights message theory comes from one of the biggest mass UFO sightings in modern history. On March 13th, 1997, thousands of people across Arizona, Nevada, and even parts of Mexico reported seeing huge formations of lights in the sky. The most famous report described a massive, silent V-shaped craft with lights along its edges, gliding slowly and blocking out the stars above it. Hours later, another series of stationary lights appeared near Phoenix, hanging in the sky before disappearing. The theory says that this wasn't just a random UFO appearance. It was an intentional message directed at humanity. The sheer size of the craft, the fact that it was seen by so many people at once, and the silence of the event all point to something carefully staged. Now, instead of being a quick flyover or a secret experiment, the lights were meant to be undeniable. By showing up in a populated area with thousands of witnesses, the message was simple: we are here and we want you to notice. And this is, of course, coming from the aliens, like not our government or something like that. Some versions of this theory suggest that the message was a test, almost like a first step toward open contact. I mean, the craft didn't cause any damage, it didn't attack, and it didn't hide in remote areas. It revealed itself in a calm, peaceful way, as if to almost gauge how people would react. Also, side note, my glasses are broken right here, and it's low-key cutting my eyebrow. So if there's any glasses companies out there that want to send your boy some glasses, I'll rock them for sure. Anyway, theory number 15, reptilian underground cities. The reptilian underground cities theory suggests that an advanced race of reptilian beings lives deep beneath Earth's surface, hidden away in massive underground bases or even entire cities. These beings are often described as intelligent, humanoid reptiles who have been on Earth far longer than humans. The theory says they retreated underground either to escape natural disasters on the surface thousands of years ago, or to remain hidden while still influencing the course of human history. According to the story, these underground cities are not small caves, but highly developed environments with advanced technology, transportation systems, and energy sources. Some versions describe them as stretching beneath major world capitals, connected by tunnels that run for hundreds or even thousands of miles. And these networks supposedly allow the reptilians to move unseen while keeping control over human affairs from the shadows. The theory also ties into reports of strange disappearances and accounts of deep military bases. Places like the Dulce base in New Mexico are often linked to reptilian activity, with claims that secret experiments and human interactions with these beings happen there. Ancient myths about serpent gods or underground dwellers are sometimes pointed to as cultural memories of reptilian contact. Theory number 16, the ancient war on Earth. The ancient war on Earth theory suggests that thousands of years ago, long before recorded history, our planet was the site of a massive battle between advanced alien civilizations. Now, instead of Earth being a quiet, isolated world, the theory says that it was once a strategic location, either, for resources, for territory, or for, control over humanity itself. Now, different alien groups supposedly fought each other here, and traces of this war are hidden in myths, ruins, and unexplained ancient structures. According to the theory, many old legends about gods battling in the sky, fiery chariots, or weapons of light are not just stories, but eyewitness accounts of advanced technology used in those wars. Ancient texts like the Indian Mahabharata, which describe weapons that sound like nuclear blasts, or even the Sumerian stories of gods warring over Earth, are often pointed to as evidence. This theory also links unusual ruins like the massive stories of Baalbek in Lebanon or unexplained craters in India to possible battle sites. The idea even goes further, suggesting that humanity may have been caught in the middle. I mean, some groups of aliens might have tried to protect us or even shape our evolution, while others may have seen us as resources to be controlled. The outcome of the war is said to have ended with Earth left in ruins, forcing survivors to rebuild civilization from scratch, while the victors either left or chose to hide their presence. Theory number 17, the RH Negative Bloodline. The RH Negative Bloodline theory focuses on a rare blood type found in humans. Many people on Earth have RH positive blood, which means they carry a protein on their red blood cells that is linked to the rhesus factor, a trait that humans share with primates. But about 10 to 15% of the population has RH negative blood, meaning that they lack that protein. The theory says that this absence is not natural and points to something unusual in human history, possibly alien involvement. Now, one reason this stands out is because of pregnancy complications. If a woman with RH negative blood is carrying a baby with RH positive blood, her body can treat the baby as a foreign threat, leading to medical issues. Now, the theory uses this as a sign that RH negative blood is not fully compatible with the rest of humanity, as if it came from a different source. The theory suggests that RH negative bloodlines could be the result of ancient genetic manipulation, where basically extraterrestrials extraterrestrials either created or altered humans to produce a group more connected to them. Some versions link this bloodline to rulers, elites, or influential families, claiming it marks people with a special heritage. Others connect it to myths of gods mating with humans or the idea of alien-human hybrids. Dude, imagine one day in the future, like, a kid gets bullied because he's RH negative. Like, what if there's a slur that we call RH negative kids? Like, hey, you ain't got the protein, dude, you're an alien. Theory number 18, the Khoury Abduction. The Khoury Abduction theory comes from a strange and disturbing case in Australia in the late 1980s. A man named Peter Khoury claimed to have been abducted by aliens, not just once, but multiple times. Now, what makes his story stand out from other abduction reports is that he said he was left with physical evidence. And that's something that, you know, most alien abduction cases don't have. In one of his most famous experiences, Khoury described waking up in his home to find two strange, humanoid women in his bedroom. They looked partly human but had unusual features. One had very pale, almost transparent skin, and the other had long black hair and dark eyes. Now, according to Khoury, the encounter quickly turned sexual, but it wasn't a, normal experience. He described the women as cold, mechanical, and not emotionally present, almost as if they were there for a specific purpose. Now, after the encounter, Khoury said he experienced sharp pain and later discovered two blonde hairs tangled in a very private area of his body. He kept the hairs and eventually had them tested by a group of independent researchers. The DNA results were pretty unusual. The hair was human, but not a common type. It showed rare genetic markers usually found in populations from regions like China and the Middle East, but combined in a way that didn't fit normal patterns. Some researchers described it as being off the charts in terms of rarity. Now, the theory built around Khoury's story is that the aliens are actively conducting hybrid experiments using human DNA, and that his encounter was part of a breeding or genetic program. The unusual DNA evidence is often cited as a key detail, suggesting that the entities involved were not ordinary humans, but something engineered or altered. So yes, basically my guy had what you'd call intercourse with two aliens. He had a threesome with aliens, which is fucking sick, dude. Theory number 19, Mimicry Aliens. The Mimicry Aliens theory suggests that some extraterrestrials don't arrive in obvious flying saucers or appear as strange looking beings, but instead they walk among us disguised as humans. Now, according to the theory, these aliens have perfected the ability to copy our appearance, our behavior, and even speech so well that they can blend in without anyone noticing. They could be your coworker, they could be a stranger on the subway, or even, someone in government or science positions quietly living alongside us while hiding their true identity. The theory often describes these beings as shapeshifters, able to physically alter their form, or as using advanced technology that projects a human-like appearance. Another idea is that they've studied us so closely that they can literally reproduce human movements, mannerisms, and emotional reactions almost perfectly. Still, there are stories of small slip-ups like odd expressions, unusual eye movements, or moments where their mask doesn't hold. Now, the purpose behind the mimicry is usually explained in two ways. And the first one is observation. They're here to study human life firsthand without interfering too much, almost like scientists watching a species in its natural environment. And then the other one is control. By taking on human identities, they can influence politics, society, or technology from the inside, and they can basically shape our future without us even realizing it. Theory number 20, the Cash-Landrum Incident. Now, the Cash-Landrum Incident theory comes from a frightening event in December 1980 in Texas. Two women, Betty Cash and Vicky Landrum, along with Vicky's young grandson Colby, were driving at night when they saw a huge diamond-shaped object in the sky. Now, it was glowing, it was fiery at the bottom, and it was making loud roaring noises as it hovered above the road. Now, the heat from it was so intense that the car's metal became too hot to touch, and the dashboard felt like a literal oven. Now, as the women watched in shock, the object slowly moved away, and dozens of helicopters, reportedly military helicopters, swarmed around it as if, they were escorting it or chasing it. Now, the group continued home, but within hours, they started suffering from severe health problems. Betty in particular had burns, blisters, nausea, hair loss, and symptoms similar to radiation poisoning. Both women were later hospitalized and their health issues lasted for years. The theory says that what they saw, wasn't just a strange UFO, but either a secret US military craft powered by experimental technology or an alien craft under government control. The helicopters suggest the military was directly involved, possibly trying to contain the situation, and even some versions of the theory suggest that the craft malfunctioned, exposing the witnesses to dangerous radiation. And others say it was just basically an alien ship being escorted after an emergency. Theory number 21, the moon mining operation. The moon mining operation theory suggests that the moon isn't just a dead, lifeless rock orbiting Earth. It's actually being used as a base for large-scale mining by extraterrestrials. According to the theory, the dark side of the moon, the part that we never see from Earth, hides massive facilities where resources are being extracted. Now, these resources could include rare metals like helium-3, which is a powerful fuel for nuclear fusion, or even unknown materials valuable to an advanced civilization. The theory often points to reports from astronauts and astronomers who claim to have seen unusual lights, structures, or movement on the moon's surface. Some Apollo astronauts, for example, supposedly reported seeing strange flashes of light or even objects watching their missions. There are also claims of photos taken by space agencies that show odd towers, dome-like buildings, or machinery-like shapes on the lunar surface, which are said to have been quietly brushed off as camera glitches or natural formations. Another part of the theory suggests that this mining operation isn't just about aliens taking resources for themselves. Some versions say that there might be deals with world governments, allowing extraterrestrials to operate on the moon in exchange for technology. The silence and secrecy around what astronauts may have actually seen on the moon just fuels to this idea. Theory number 22, the missing 411 connection. The missing 411 connection theory links the mysterious disappearances of people in national parks and remote wilderness areas to alien activity. Now, the term missing 411 comes from researcher David Paulides, who documented hundreds of baffling cases where people vanished under strange circumstances. Now, these aren't normal lost hiker stories. I mean, many of these stories involve odd details like victims disappearing within seconds, search dogs refusing to track, clothes found neatly folded, or bodies turning up miles away in areas that have already been searched. The theory says that these cases are not accidents, but abductions carried out by extraterrestrials. The wilderness is the perfect setting. I mean, it's remote, it's quiet, and most of it is unmonitored. So according to this idea, aliens use forests, mountains, and deep lakes as hunting or collection grounds, taking people for, unknown reasons. Some link it to genetic experiments, while others suggest humans are being studied like animals in the wild. Another strange detail often mentioned is clusters. Many of the disappearances happen in the same regions, as if certain hotspots are more active. Some theories even say that these areas may hide portals or hidden alien bases, which could explain how people could, vanish so quickly and, vanish without a trace. Now, what makes the missing 411 connection theory especially unsettling is the sheer number of cases with just, zero clear answers. And that's combined with official silence from park services and the government. Theory number 23, the Atacama Humanoid. The Atacama Humanoid theory comes from the discovery of a tiny, mysterious skeleton found in 2003 in the Atacama Desert of Chile. The skeleton, often called Ata, was only about 6 inches long but looked eerily human. It had an elongated skull, large eye sockets, and a strange bone structure that didn't quite match a normal human body. Now, because of its size and its unusual features, many thought that it might not be human at all, but the remains of an alien being. The theory suggests that Ata was either a visitor from another world or evidence of alien-human hybrid experiments. Some versions say the skeleton was left behind after a crash or a mission, while others suggest it was deliberately placed on Earth a long time ago. The humanoid's size has led to speculation that aliens might not be, these tall gray beings, but could come in different forms, even miniature ones adapted to different environments or different spacecrafts. Scientists who studied the remains did DNA testing and reported that Ata was human, likely a child with rare genetic disorders. But the theory argues that this explanation doesn't fully account for the extreme differences in, its skull shape, its bone density, and just the unusual mutations. To supporters, the DNA results could point to a mix of human and non-human genes. Theory number 24, the Nazi UFO Program. Now, the Nazi UFO Program theory suggests that during World War II, Nazi Germany was secretly developing advanced flying saucers and other alien-inspired technology. According to the theory, German scientists either discovered hidden knowledge, reverse-engineered alien craft, or even worked directly with aliens to build machines far beyond what the world had at the time. Now, these supposed craft were often called the Bell flying discs, described as circular vehicles capable of vertical takeoff, silent movement, and speeds unmatched by any plane of that era. The theory says the Nazis set up hidden research bases, some in Germany and others in remote locations like Antarctica, where they could test these projects away from Allied eyes. Now, Antarctica is often mentioned as the place where the most advanced UFOs were stored, leading to the idea that after the war, some of these scientists and machines remained hidden in Antarctica. Another part of the theory is that these sudden leaps in post-war technology, things like jet engines, rockets, and even early space travel, came from captured Nazi research. Operation Paperclip, where the US secretly brought over German scientists, is often tied to this, suggesting that their knowledge wasn't just about rockets, but also about advanced craft that looked like UFOs. Theory number 25, the Varginha Incident. The Varginha Incident theory comes from a strange series of events that happened in January 1996 in the town of Varginha, Brazil. The story began when local residents reported seeing a strange, cigar-shaped craft moving unsteadily through the sky before crashing near the town. Soon after, multiple witnesses, including 3 young women, claimed that they saw small, strange-looking creatures wandering around the area. The beings were described as about 4 feet tall, with brownish skin, large red eyes, and a strong, unpleasant smell. The girls who first saw one said it crouched by a wall, seemed weak, and looked more frightened than threatening. Word quickly spread, and reports came in of the military arriving in the town, cordoning off areas, and secretly transporting something away in trucks. Some locals even said that they saw soldiers capturing at least one of the creatures alive. Now, the theory suggests that the Brazilian military recovered a crashed UFO along with alien occupants, some dead and some alive, and then basically just covered up the whole entire event. There are claims that hospitals in the area suddenly had tight security, and that a soldier who handled one of the creatures later became sick and died, possibly from exposure to something unknown. Theory number 26, the plasma lifeforms theory. The plasma lifeforms theory is the idea that some UFOs are not machines at all, but actually living creatures made of energy or plasma that exist naturally in Earth's atmosphere or even in space. Now, plasma is a state of matter similar to gas, but electrically charged, like, lightning or the glowing material in stars. So according to this idea, these life forms are made entirely out of plasma instead of, flesh and bone, which would explain why they move and behave in ways that don't match traditional aircraft. People who connect sightings to this theory point out that many UFOs appear as glowing orbs, shifting shapes, or lights that pulse, divide, or merge together. These behaviors look less like mechanical crafts and more like biological organisms. Some reports describe UFOs that seem curious, playful, or even skittish, acting more like animals than machines. Their ability to appear, disappear, or change color would be part of how they live, feed, or communicate. The atmosphere and upper layers of Earth's environment might provide the perfect conditions for such beings. They could survive by feeding on electromagnetic energy from storms, the Earth's magnetic field, or even human-made sources like radio waves and power grids. This would explain why sightings often happen near electrical disturbances or during thunderstorms. So basically, these damn UFOs aren't ships, but they're actually like little creatures, Theory number 27, the 1897 Aurora Crash. The 1897 Aurora Crash theory is about an event that supposedly happened in the small town of Aurora, Texas, decades before the famous Roswell incident. Now, according to newspaper reports from April 1897, a strange airship was seen flying over the area before it suddenly crashed into a windmill on a local farm. The explosion destroyed part of the property, scattered debris across the ground, and left the townspeople shocked at what they found. Among the wreckage, witnesses claimed that there was a small body that did not appear human. The townspeople described it as a Martian and said it was badly burned from the crash. Now, instead of hiding it, the community reportedly gave the being a proper burial in the local cemetery. Now, for years, stories spread that the grave was marked and that unusual metal fragments from the crash were kept by some residents. Now, what makes this story so interesting is the timing. I mean, in the late 1800s, there were already widespread reports of mystery airships being seen across the United States, long before airplanes had even been invented. The Aurora Crash was seen as one of the clearest examples because it supposedly left both a craft and a body behind. Now, the theory says that this wasn't just a, tall tale or local legend, but an early UFO crash where the evidence was quickly lost to history. The grave of the alien is said to still exist, although official attempts to dig it up have been blocked. Theory number 28, the Sumerian Anunnaki return. The Sumerian Anunnaki return theory is built on the idea that the gods described in the ancient Sumerian texts were not mythical beings, but advanced extraterrestrials who once visited Earth. The Sumerians, one of the earliest known civilizations, wrote about powerful beings called the Anunnaki, who came from the heavens and played a direct role in shaping human society. These beings were described as tall, powerful, and capable of incredible feats, often linked to knowledge of the stars, agriculture, and advanced technology. Now, according to the theory, the Anunnaki didn't just visit. They created or genetically altered humans to serve as workers, especially for mining gold and other valuable resources. The Sumerian stories describe the Anunnaki as needing humans to carry out labor, which fits into the larger idea that human civilization was jump-started by outside intervention rather than natural progress. Now, the return part of this theory comes from the belief that the Anunnaki promised to come back at a future time, and that their home planet, called Nibiru, follows a long orbit that brings it near Earth only every few thousand years. People connect this with modern fears about Planet X, and say that when Nibiru comes close again, the Anunnaki will return with it. Theory number 29, the Dropa Stones. The Dropa Stones theory comes from a story about a discovery in the mountains of China near the border of Tibet in the 1930s. Now, according to reports, archaeologists exploring remote caves found hundreds of small, round stone discs buried in ancient tombs. Now, each disc was, about a foot wide, with a hole in the middle like a record and covered in tiny spiral carvings that looked like writing. Now, the theory says that these stones are actually a record left behind by an alien group called the Dropa, who crash-landed on Earth thousands of years ago. The spiral markings, when supposedly translated, told the story of how the Dropa's spacecraft malfunctioned and came down in the mountains. With no way to repair their ship, they were forced to live among the local tribes. Over time, the aliens and humans mixed, and the Dropa left behind the stones to explain who they were and what had happened. Some versions of the story add that skeletons with unusually small, thin bodies and large heads were found in the same caves, supporting the idea that they weren't normal humans. The discs were said to have strange magnetic or electrical properties, as if they weren't just stones but had been created with advanced technology. Theory number 30, the Lubbock Lights. The Lubbock Lights theory comes from a famous UFO event that took place in August 1951 over the city of Lubbock, Texas. Now, on several nights, dozens of residents reported seeing strange formations of glowing lights moving silently across the sky. The lights were usually described as bright bluish-white objects that flew in a large V-shaped pattern, sometimes numbering in the dozens. They appeared to move quickly, in perfect formation, and without any sound. Now, what made this event stand out was the number of credible witnesses. A group of professors from Texas Technical College saw the lights and studied them carefully. On another night, a local man named Carl Hart Jr. managed to take several photographs of the lights, which later appeared in newspapers across the country. The pictures showed a distinct V-shaped arrangement, adding weight to the story. The theory says that the Lubbock Lights weren't just natural phenomena like, birds reflecting city lights or meteor showers, but a structured craft or multiple crafts flying over Texas. The precision of the formations and the repeated appearances over several nights made it seem like a controlled, intelligent event rather than random slights in the sky. Some connect the event to secret military aircraft, while others tie it to aliens making their presence known in a subtle but undeniable way. Theory number 31, the alien ocean bases. The alien ocean bases theory says that Earth's oceans hide long-term bases used by non-human visitors. Instead of building on land or hovering in the sky, the aliens set up underwater where almost nobody looks. The oceans cover most of the planet, they are hard to search, and they give perfect cover for quiet travel. Now, reports that feed this idea talk about USOs, which are unidentified submerged objects. These are lights or craft that dive into the sea without a splash, shoot off at extreme speed underwater, or rise straight out of the water into the air. Sailors, pilots, and coastal residents describe bright orbs slipping under the waves, long glowing shapes cruising just below the surface, and radar or sonar tracks that move far faster than known submarines. Now, hotspots get mentioned a lot, places like deep trenches, seamount chains, and busy straits where ships and aircraft frequently pass, like the Catalina Island off of California, the Puerto Rico Trench, parts of the North Atlantic, and the Western Pacific. Now, these bases might work like hidden caverns or domes on the seafloor. They could be access tunnels in volcanic ridges, or energy pulled from geothermal vents or undersea currents. Now, the crafts are often described as transmedium, meaning they move through air and water with no slowdown because they aren't pushing through fluid the way that our vehicles do. They're basically wrapped in a field that parts the medium around them. Theory number 32, the Japanese UFO Dogfight of 1803. The Japanese UFO Dogfight of 1803 theory says that people in coastal Japan watched two strange flying craft fight each other in the sky during the Edo Pyramid. The story places it along the eastern coast of Honshu, the same region tied to the hollow ship legend from that year. Witnesses are described as fishermen, villagers, and temple attendants who looked up at dusk and saw bright, silent objects moving against the wind. One craft was said to glow white and the other was glowing amber. They circled, they closed in fast, and then broke apart with flashes of light as if they were trading shots. Now, some versions describe a smell like burnt sulfur and a fine ash drifting down afterward. After several passes, the amber craft allegedly lost height and headed toward the sea. And a few days later, the hollow ship washed ashore, which was a round bowl-like vessel with windows and metal bands. Inside, villagers reportedly found strange writing, unfamiliar fabrics, and a young woman with red or fair hair who guarded a sealed box. She didn't speak Japanese, and she was taken back to the craft before local officials ordered everything pushed back out to the sea. Now, in this story, that washed-up vessel was not a boat, but it was the damaged craft, or it was an escape pod from that dogfight. So the dogfight was basically lights dueling overhead, a crash or a forced landing, and then a recovered object that didn't match known technology. Theory number 33, the Betz mystery sphere. The Betz mystery sphere theory comes from a weird find in 1974 on Fort George Island in Florida. After a brush fire, the Betz family discovered a shiny metal ball about 8 inches across and around 20 to about 25 pounds. Now, when they took it home, strange things started happening. The sphere seemed to move by itself. If you rolled it one way, it would stop, turn back, and then roll back. It would avoid edges as if it, knew not to fall. It sometimes made a faint humming or ringing sound, and it even reportedly vibrated the floor. Now, the family let reporters and scientists see the metal ball. X-rays were said to show smaller spheres inside, like a set of nested parts. The metal surface looked seamless. There was no welds, there was no screws, or there was no openings, and the sphere supposedly gave off odd magnetic or radio readings at times, and it behaved differently from a normal steel ball bearing. Now, it wasn't just rolling downhill, it acted like it had a guidance system or an internal, brain. The theory says that the sphere is not a piece of industrial scrap, but an alien device, maybe a probe, a data recorder, or a beacon that fell or was left behind. Its self-correcting movement is framed as internal gyros or a floating core that shifts weight to steer. The hums and radio blips get treated as signals or diagnostics. And the odd resistance to falling and the way it, learned rooms are taken as signs it could map spaces and react to stimuli. Theory number 34, the frequency farming theory. The frequency farming theory is the idea that aliens are using sound waves, radio signals, or electromagnetic frequencies to subtly influence human thoughts, emotions, and behavior. Now, instead of controlling people directly with visible technology, this approach works in the background, shaping entire populations without them realizing it. The theory treats Earth like a giant field where humans are the crops and the frequencies are the tools used to manage us. According to the theory, UFO sightings and strange humming noises reported in different parts of the world could be signs of these frequency systems in action. People sometimes describe hearing a deep, low hum with no clear source, or experiencing sudden mood changes when these sounds occur. The theory ties this to the idea that human brains naturally operate at certain frequencies, and if an outside force broadcasts on those same wavelengths, it can push emotions like fear, calmness, aggression, or obedience. The farming part comes from the suggestion that aliens aren't doing this for fun, but for harvesting energy. Human emotional states, especially the stronger ones like fear, excitement, or even love, might generate forms of energy that advanced beings can tap into, almost, kind of like electricity. By using frequencies, they can farm humanity, creating conditions where people give off the emotions or energy that they need. Theory number 35, the Red Rain of Kerala. Now, the Red Rain of Kerala theory comes from a bizarre event that happened in southern India in 2001. Now, for weeks, heavy rain fell in the state of Kerala, but instead of being, clear, the water came down stained a deep red, leaving clothes, walls, and streets looking like they were splashed with blood. Scientists at first thought it was just dust from deserts carried by wind, but when samples were studied under microscopes, the particles looked more like tiny cells than dust or sand. Now, the theory says that this strange rain wasn't natural at all, but the result of alien microbes entering Earth's atmosphere. Some researchers suggested that the cells in the red rain didn't have normal DNA, or at least didn't show it in the usual ways when tested. This led to the idea that the particles could be extraterrestrial life, or simple organisms from space that got caught in Earth's atmosphere and fell with the rain. Another part of the theory connects the red rain to reports of a loud boom and a flash of light in the sky just before the event started, almost like a meteor breaking apart. The idea is that the meteor wasn't just a rock, but it carried microscopic alien life, which then mixed into the clouds and came down as rain. Theory number 36, the Val Johnson Incident. The Val Johnson Incident theory comes from a strange encounter in 1979 involving a Minnesota sheriff's deputy named Val Johnson. Now, while on night patrol in rural Marshall County, Johnson reported seeing a bright ball of light hovering over the road. Now, thinking it was unusual but not dangerous, he drove towards it. Suddenly, the light shot forward, filled his car, and everything went blank. Now, when Johnson woke up about 40 minutes later, his patrol car was on the side of the road with the engine still running, but the headlights smashed and the window cracked. The car's radio antenna was bent sharply at a right angle, and the dashboard clock and Johnson's wristwatch had both stopped for exactly 14 minutes before starting again on their own. Johnson himself had burns on his face and temporary eye injuries, similar to what welders experience when exposed to extreme ultraviolet light. Now, the theory says that the light wasn't just a random glow or a natural phenomenon, but a UFO that deliberately made contact with Johnson. The missing time, the simultaneous clock stoppages, and the strange physical damage to both the deputy and his vehicle are treated as signs of a close encounter. Some versions say the light may have scanned or tested him, leaving him unconscious as it interacted with his car. Theory number 37, the MIR Cosmonaut Sightings. The MIR Cosmonaut Sightings theory comes from reports made by Russian astronauts, or cosmonauts, who lived aboard the MIR space station during the 1980s and the 1990s. Now, while in orbit, some of these cosmonauts described seeing things that didn't make sense. things like strange lights, unidentified objects, and even what looked like living beings appearing outside the station. Now, one of the most famous stories is from 1985, when the crew claimed to see giant glowing humanoid figures floating in space. They described these beings as radiant, angel-like forms with peaceful expressions. The figures were said to be huge, tens of meters tall, and appeared to hover just beyond the windows of the station before fading away. The cosmonauts insisted that they were awake and alert when this happened, and more than one crew member reported the same exact thing. Other accounts include sightings of unusual crafts pacing alongside MIR, objects that change direction suddenly, or bright flashes of light that seem to respond to the station. These details are difficult to explain as space debris or normal light reflections, which fuels to the mystery. The theory says that these weren't hallucinations or tricks of the eye, but genuine encounters with extraterrestrials or interdimensional beings. The glowing figures are sometimes interpreted as alien life that looks nothing like humans expect, or as higher beings monitoring humanity's first steps into space. Theory number 38, the cattle mutilation network. The cattle mutilation network theory comes from decades of strange cases where cows and other livestock are found dead with precise surgical-like wounds. Now, these cases started being reported heavily in the 1960s, and they continue today, mostly in rural areas of the United States, but also in, other places around the world. The animals are often discovered with organs removed, blood completely drained, and cut so clean that they look like they were made with, like lasers. Now, what makes it even stranger is that there are usually no tracks, no footprints, and no signs of predators near the bodies. The theory says that this isn't just, random or the work of farmers or cults, but part of a coordinated alien program. The idea is that the extraterrestrials are using livestock as biological samples to study Earth's environment, food chain, and the effects of pollution or disease. Since cattle are widely distributed and biologically similar in some ways to humans, they could make ideal test subjects. The network part of this theory comes from the fact that these mutilations are reported in clusters across different regions, almost as if they are being done systematically according to a larger plan. Farmers have also reported seeing strange lights in the sky, craft hovering over fields, or hearing humming noises on nights where mutilations occurred. Theory number 39, the alien time travelers. The alien time travelers theory is the idea that UFOs and the beings often linked to them aren't aliens from another planet at all, but humans from the future. Now, instead of crossing vast distances in space, they are crossing time to visit us. According to this idea, their strange appearance, the large heads, the small bodies, the big eyes, they could actually be the way humans evolve thousands or even millions of years from now. With advanced technology and, heavy dependence on machines, future humans might not need strong bodies, but would develop larger brains and different features, which is why they look so unfamiliar. Now, UFOs in this theory are time machines rather than just spacecraft. Their sudden appearances and disappearances, their impossible flight maneuvers, and their ability to defy known physics all make sense if they're slipping in and out of time rather than flying like a normal aircraft. This would also explain why UFOs often seem interested in nuclear sites, in nuclear wars, or moments of crisis. It could just be future humans returning to study or even to warn us about the events that shaped, their history. Some abduction stories are also tied to this idea. The medical exams and genetic experiments often described could be future humans trying to study or repair their own DNA by looking at earlier versions of themselves. And last but not least, theory number 40, Oumuamua as a probe. Now, the Oumuamua as a probe theory comes from the discovery of a strange object that passed through our solar system in 2017. Now, astronomers spotted it moving in a way that didn't match normal comets or asteroids. It was long and cigar-shaped, or possibly flat like a pancake, and it reflected sunlight in unusual ways. Now, most importantly, its path changed slightly as if it was being pushed by something other than gravity. Now, normally a comet would release gas and dust to explain that movement, but Oumuamua didn't show any of those signs. The theory says that this object wasn't a natural rock at all, but an artificial probe sent by an intelligent civilization. Instead of a random piece of space debris, Oumuamua could be a kind of solar sail, you know, a thin craft that uses starlight to travel huge distances without fuel. Its unusual shape and motion makes sense if it was designed to be efficient at catching light or transmitting signals. Some scientists who studied Oumuamua even suggested it might have been deliberately sent into our solar system, either to gather data or to check for intelligent life. You know, because it was moving so fast, it couldn't have come from within our system. It came from deep interstellar space. That means that if it was a probe, it was built by someone far beyond Earth, possibly thousands of years ago. Alrighty, y'all, and those have been 40 of some of the craziest and, you know, some of the most not well-known alien conspiracy theories, if that makes sense. For this video, I really tried hard to find theories that I haven't, you know, heard of, or that I haven't heard a lot of people cover. So hopefully, you know, a lot of these theories, or hopefully majority of these theories, you guys didn't know, and now you know. Now you can tell your friends about it. But anyway, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe with those post notifications on, as it truly means the world to me. I'm really trying to hit 600,000 subscribers before the end of the year. So if that's something you guys want to help me with, please be sure to subscribe. And yeah, let me know down in the comments which theory was your favorite or which theories you believed. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.